Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's set of online classes from the Delphian School. I'm glad to be joining you today. If you haven't been in one of my classes before, my name is James. I've been working here at the Delphian School for about 14 years or so. And back in the spring, we did a series of online classes talking about basic first aid and emergencies, what to do if you're hurt or if your friend is hurt or injured, or if you find yourself in a disaster situation. And it's good to go over that kind of stuff multiple times, over and over again. I have been doing my first aid training every year, every couple of years for the last 14, 15 years. And before that, I would do Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts. And I've always been interested in how to help myself and how to help other people in times that they're sick or injured. And every time I go over the same information, I learn a little bit more, or at least I get more certain of it, so that when it does happen, oh no, my friend has a cut on his leg, I don't have to think. I can just jump into action and just do the correct thing to help him at that time. Okay. All right, a bunch of people saying hello in the Q&A section here. I see some familiar names and I see some new names. Hello to everyone. All right, Katya making a good point. Call 911 when you are in trouble. Yes, we're going to cover that in here. If there's something that you're not sure what to do, you think it might be kind of serious, you're not sure if you should call for an ambulance or not, or call a medical professional. In America, you call 911. In Britain, you call 999. Different countries throughout the world have their own emergency number that you can call. Some countries it's 911, others it's others. So if you don't know what that is for the country where you live, do look that up after this. It's great to know that, so you don't need to think what to call. Just boop, there we go. If you're traveling to a country that you are not from, that you haven't been to before, look up ahead of time. What is the emergency number in that country? Because if I go on a trip to the United Kingdom and I, maybe break my ankle or something like that and I need to call for help, if I call 911, I'm not getting I'm not getting an emergency service. I'm just going to grab my phone really quick to make sure that I did not accidentally tell it to call an emergency number. I did not. That's very good. All right. Well, today we're going to be working out of the Heron Books pack called Basic First Aid and Emergencies. And I have here with me, I have one of the earlier editions of it. When you order this from heronbooks.com, and it is available on that website, you're going to get the new and improved looking version, which looks like this, very pretty. But same information. And we're going to be going through this just chapter by chapter. Let's see how far we can get today. I don't have an exact planned stopping point. We're just going to cover as much as we can. All right. Hello to everyone. I'm seeing some really good questions in the Q&A section here. And if I don't take up your exact question about a first aid thing, it's because I know that we're going to be covering it here shortly. I want to make one final introduction before we get going here with the class. This is Benjamin. He was our demonstration, our volunteer back in the spring when we were doing this class. And I decided to bring him back. He will be our test subject today. Any injuries that occur that we will need to fix, Benjamin will be the subject of those. I would like to thank Benjamin for his dedication. All right, let's get going. Here's that pack there. All right, we're going to scroll down to the first chapter here. Great. First aid. Aid is help. First aid is emergency medical help that is given first when a person is sick or injured before they can get full medical help. It can be very important to know first aid so you can help an ill or injured person who cannot get to a doctor right away. For example, if you knew how to help someone who is choking, you could possibly save his life. You might still need to see a doctor to fully recover, but you would have handled the emergency. Other common examples of things that can happen when a person needs first aid are knife cuts, sprained ankles, insect bites, car accidents, or when a person gets too hot or too cold. Knowing some simple things about first aid can help you help people when they are hurt or very uncomfortable. Okay. First thing we're going to talk about is minor wounds or bleeding, which is always the first thing that I think of when I think of first aid. You know, you get a cut, what do? A wound is an injury in which some part of the body is cut or hurt in some way. A minor wound is one that does not cause a lot of bleeding or damage, but still needs to be handled. Examples might be a skinned knee or a cut finger. Minor wounds usually stop bleeding by themselves and just need to be washed, then covered with a sterile bandage, like a Band-Aid bandage. A sterile bandage is specifically made to be germ-free. Small ones usually have sticky parts to hold the soft material over the wound. We're going to look at examples of all this in just a moment here. Actually, let me pop out a screen share real quick. I have a few examples here with me. Here is kind of your basic Band-Aid. Band-Aid is the name of a company that makes these things. So I call them Band-Aids just because that it's such an easy name to remember. Adhesive bandage or adhesive dressing is kind of the proper name for it. But we're probably all familiar with this. There's a piece of sterile, perfectly clean material on the inside that can soak up blood. And then you've got sticky parts around it to help keep it on the wound. Very handy. I use these all the time. Some other things that we have, sometimes you'll have a larger piece. Let's say it's a bigger cut or a longer cut, and one little Band-Aid is not going to do it. They do make Band-Aids in different sizes. Sometimes they're slightly larger. This one's, about 3/4 of an inch by 1.5 inches. It's pretty big. It can cover a much bigger wound than that smaller one that I was holding up. Sometimes you need more. You'll see these, this is gauze, which is a specific kind of very absorbent material that it's clean, there's no germs on it. You can see it's all sealed up in this package here. And it's super clean in there. So even if I'm out in the woods, I can pull this out of my pack, I can open it up, and I will know that the first germs that will ever touch it are from my own hands. So very, very clean. Okay, good. If you can, it's good to use an antibiotic ointment also. The word antibiotic comes from anti, which means against, and biotic, which means living things. Antibiotic ointment is a cream you can put on a wound that helps kill the small living things, germs, that might get into the wound. You put it on the wound, then put the bandage over it. If germs do get into a wound and start attacking that part of the person's body, this is called an infection. Germs are around us all the time, but our bodies usually stay healthy, showing that the body can usually fight off and kill enough germs to keep them from causing a problem. But sometimes the germs in a wound win for a while, and the wound gets infected. So an important part of first aid is getting a wound very clean so this doesn't happen in the first place. If a wound does get infected, the general rule is to get some medical attention. All right, let me pop into the questions here before we move on. Make sure I'm not leaving things unanswered here. If you do have a question about what we're talking about, if I went too fast over a section, or if I'm using words that you don't understand, please do put that information in the Q&A section. I see it all. I can stop and clear those things up. A lot of people saying hello. Oh, and Evan is saying 911, that emergency number is also used in Mexico. That's really good to know. All right, good. Looks like we're caught up on those questions there. So what do you do? What do you do? Here's how to spot a wound that is getting infected. At first, the skin around the wound gets a bit red, puffy, and even sorer. Pus may form. This is a yellowish, thick liquid that oozes from a wound or is trapped inside a wound. If the infection gets worse, the skin around it gets much redder and swollen and quite painful. An infection can make a person feel ill, possibly even giving him a fever. An infection that has been left alone too long can even spread through the blood, and red streaks can be seen on the body going out from the wound. If you use good first aid, as discussed below, most minor wounds will heal just fine. But you should be alert for signs of infection, and if you see them, get medical help. Okay. We have a comment here from Ben. He says, I heard that duct tape has been used to similarly function as gauze. I've heard people talk about using duct tape like that too. I am not one to use duct tape as the first thing for a couple of reasons. One is gauze like this, or a Band-Aid that you're pulling fresh out of the package and you take the wrapper off right then, you know that it's sterile. Sterile meaning there are no extra germs on it. It was very, very clean in the factory. They make it so that there's no germs in it, and you know it's clean. Duct tape cannot have that guarantee. Also, duct tape is extremely sticky, and I don't know if you've put duct tape on your arm or something like that. Let it sit there for a while to really let it, let the adhesive grab hold of your skin and the hair on your arm, and then you try to pull it off. It hurts. It hurts, especially if there's hair there and it's pulling the hair out. It's not going to be very comfortable. In an emergency situation where it's like, listen, I don't have gauze, I don't have bandages, my arm is bleeding, and if I don't stop the bleeding, I'm in big trouble. Okay, you know what? At that point, duct tape, it's going to hurt when you take it off, but it's better than losing all of your blood. So sure, in an emergency situation. But do know that that will not be a sterile covering of it, and you're definitely going to want to get some antibiotics when you do get to a doctor afterwards. I did pull up, a lot of people, their first thought when they go to an antibiotic ointment is Neosporin. It's a great, just kind of all around, you get a cut or a scrape or something and you put that on it, you put the bandage or Band-Aid over it, and it'll help kill that infection in there or prevent the infection from starting in the first place. Okay. Oakley, would you mind handing me that roll of duct tape right there? When I'm pronouncing this word, I don't pronounce the entire thing. It's duct, D-U-C-T, tape is what it's originally called, because it was first designed to help seal up ducts, air ducts, like tubes that go through a house or a building that help carry air from one place to another. You've got your air conditioner over here or your heater. You've got the room over here that it needs to go to, so you put a pipe through that. And this stuff, duct tape, which I will not work on pronouncing perfectly and properly for the rest of this time, because it's easier to just say duck, but the T is silent, I suppose. Anyway, this stuff here that many of you will probably recognize. It's extremely useful stuff. They first made it for sealing ducts, and now I have seen people make purses from it and bow ties and use it for all kinds of stuff. Wallets. You can tear it easily like that, but it's also extremely strong, and this will very well hold up to a lot of pressure and pulling and twisting and stuff like that. I just said, like, it hurts to take it off. I'm going to put it on my arm and leave it there for a couple of minutes. I'll take it off and I'll tell you if it hurts or not, so that you don't have to do this experiment yourself. You're welcome. All right. Gerard asks, what makes wounds bigger or smaller? So, of course, the first thing is what creates the wound in the first place? Did you get, kind of slashed by a pair of scissors? Or did you get poked with a pair of scissors? How big that initial wound was will, of course, be the first thing that determines that. But then afterwards, if you're taking good care of the wound, if you cleaned it and disinfected it and put the bandage on, it'll very quickly start to close up and get smaller. The body is an amazing thing. The moment you get an injury, all these automatic repair things go into effect. Like, what if when someone, put a dent in your bike or something like that? What if your bike started to heal itself instantly, and within a week, that dent in your bike was entirely gone? Incredible. That's what your body does all the time. Every bump, every scrape, everything, your body is constantly fixing and repairing itself. It's incredible. All right. Take off this duct tape here and see what happens. Okay, that wasn't so bad, but it wasn't comfortable. I'm not going to want to do that on purpose very often only for ow. Yeah, it's hurting even more afterwards. Now that my hair is like, and my skin's like, what are you doing? All right, I'm sorry. Good. But if you don't take good care of that wound, if you let the dirt stay in it, if you don't disinfect and let germs get in there and you're not cleaning it and putting clean bandages on it, it could get infected and it will kind of start to, the wound itself won't spread. You know, the cut won't get any bigger than it was, but the redness around it will start to spread. And that's your body reacting to these germs growing in there. All right. Ananya asks, what if you have an infection, but you're in a situation where you can't use medical help? What do you do? So part of the reason why I chose this background here is, one, we're talking about kind of serious stuff. We're talking about, you know, people bleeding and getting hurt and injured and stuff like that. It can be a serious subject, but we don't want to be too upset about it. If you start getting upset in a situation like that, if you start to lose your ability to think and act rationally, you're in more trouble. You want to keep a clear, cool, calm head around yourself in these situations. So I chose a nice, pretty background because it's pretty, but also, like, let's say, here's the situation. We're taking a walk. We're out on a walk and we are, you know, a couple hours from our house and we're in this gorgeous field watching the sunset, and, you know, you step in a rabbit hole and you twist your ankle, or, you know, there's a branch that you cut your leg on. That's the situation. Let's say that we're out walking with our friend. It's us and Benjamin. We're out on this walk. So that's the scenario that we're going to kind of play out. So what do you do if you're in a situation where you can't use medical help? That's what first aid is for. You're going to do the aid first, and then you're going to use that to stabilize and protect yourself until you can get to a spot where you have additional help. Ideally, you're in, let's say we're out with Benjamin on this walk and he gets a deep cut on his leg. We were smart. We brought a pack of basic first aid and medical supplies with us. So I have enough that I can, you know, clean and patch up that leg at first. And then when we get back home, we will see if we need to do more. We would also bring our cell phone with us. Cell phone coverage is pretty darn good around the world today, and it's getting even better. And you can call for help. You can be like, hey, Mom, we were out walking and Benjamin cut his knee, and could you come pick us up? Hopefully you're accessible. You can, you know, maybe there's a road right down there at the bottom of that hill. You can walk there and you can come get picked up. Gerard asks, are wounds supposed to stay sterile for a long time or only for a short while? Great. So again, your body automatically goes into fixing mode. It goes into this complicated repair sequence, which is just brilliant. It's amazing. There's a couple things happening. I mean, like the wound might be bleeding at first. That's fine, okay? Bleeding serves a couple of things. For one thing, let's say some dirt, some germs get into the wound right away. That bleeding is going to, one of the things it does is it pushes those germs out. The dirty blood gets pushed out and fresh blood is coming in. So you lose some blood, but that's okay. You've got plenty of extra stuff. As it's getting that stuff out of there, great. You want to be treating it with clean stuff from there on. Clean water, you know, let's say you have a clean water bottle and you can rinse off that area, get whatever extra dirt off of there. Take your, I don't have a little pack of antibiotic ointment, so I'm going to take this piece of duct tape that I tore off my arm, which I now regret doing, and I'll pretend that this is our little, you know, packet of ointment, and you'll put that ointment on the cut. There we go, and then bandage it up. Once it is sealed over, once the thing is scabbed and the blood has dried, that is a natural barrier that your body has formed. If that scab stays complete and stays solid, that dried blood forming that shield on the top, good. You can start to treat that thing a little bit more gently now. And if you're not perfectly 100% sterile, that's okay. Do the best that you can in the situation. Again, this is first aid, and it's meant to get you to the next step. Stabilize so that you can get to a medical professional if you need the help. Okay. My grandpa said, Shanna's saying, my grandpa said either him or someone he knew glued a cut so that he would not have to get stitches. I have also gotten my finger glued. My sister almost chopped the pad of my pinky finger. Oof. Okay, yes. My own son, he got a cut on his head when he was about 2.5 years old. It was very scary at first. Head wounds bleed a lot. It was a tiny cut. It was maybe about that big, not very big, but boy, did it bleed a lot. I got a cut here when I was in 5th grade and it bled a lot. Head wounds do that. And, you know, we took, I'm not gonna open this package yet, but we took, you know, clean bandages, clean material, and we put it on there and we pressed hard. That stops more blood from coming out and it helps the body start to form that barrier. And we went to the emergency room and they looked at, should we give him stitches? And it was the right size that, like, you know what, we can glue it. They basically used fancy medical super glue. And so he has a much smaller scar there now than he would have had if they would have had to stitch it shut. So yeah, glue, doctors will sometimes use glue in order to do that. Okay, Gerard asked, what does Neosporin do? So Neosporin is an antibiotic. And as we covered a couple of minutes ago in the pack, antibiotic is, it's an ointment, it's a cream that will go in and will kill the bacteria that would try to get into the wound and infect it. So there's many, many, many different kinds of antibiotics. This was just the first example that came up. So there we go. All right, Josh asks, how will the immune system react if the infection gets bad? Well, that's what's happening where it described if the wound starts to get red and that redness starts to spread. That redness is your body fighting back. That redness is your body, it's sending blood into the area, it's sending attention in the area, like go, 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 kill the enemy. If it starts to get worse and worse, it'll be very sore to the touch. Even touching it, you don't even want to do that. At that point, you really need to get to a doctor or an urgent care center or a hospital if there's not another doctor available right then, so that they can give you the correct medicine to help your body fight that off. Jackson asked, can't water be contaminated? Yes. So when I was thinking of using water to wash off a wound, I'm not going to grab water from a creek that we're passing by or a pond near us. I'm going to take a bottle of water that I brought with me on the trip. You know, it came out of a container. I got it from my faucet, and I know it's way more clean than the water you're going to find on the ground around you on a hike. Okay. Wow, so many good questions here. I'm gonna have to start skipping some of these amazing questions, but when we're done today, and let's see, we got about 20 minutes left, I will stick around and answer as many more as I can in the Q&A section, the typing stuff. All right. Great. I'll answer 2 more really quick things. Abby asks, how does a wound heal by itself? That's the amazing thing about the human body. It's constantly fixing itself. Anytime you get injured, and sometimes you get hurt, you don't even know it, your body fixes it right up. All right. And Milo says, I once got a really big cut on my knee, but it didn't hurt. Why? That can happen sometimes. Sometimes you don't feel it. Sometimes adrenaline, this hormone that your body produces, that it pumps it into your body when you're scared or injured or something like that. Adrenaline can help you, it can help reduce the feeling of pain for a short while so you can escape the danger, right? Milo, I wonder if your knee started hurting more afterwards, but at the very moment it didn't hurt a lot. It's kind of interesting. That just happens sometimes. All right. Oh, so many amazing questions. I have to skip down to the bottom, and I'm going to continue on a little bit here so we can cover as much as possible. So here's the situation. We have a small wound or a scratch with little bleeding. Great, good. Now, it gives a note here. Be careful not to get another person's blood on your own hands because you can get a disease more easily that way. If available, wear disposable gloves. If gloves are not available, place some other barrier between the blood and your hands. A clean plastic bag might work well. You should always wash your hands well after you give someone first aid to someone who is bleeding, even if you wear gloves. So I brought some gloves with me here today. And put these on before I deal with Benjamin here. If I ever have gloves or like a bag or something like that available, I'm definitely going to use it. If you don't, if it is a matter of life or death, or if this person is injured and they need help and you don't have gloves, if it's me, I'm going to help them. And I will wash my hands extremely thoroughly later. So there we go. I've got gloves. Okay. First, wash the wound with soap and water, let the skin dry, and apply a bandage. If you do not have a bandage and the wound is small, you might leave it uncovered. You can use some antibiotic ointment if you have some available. So here's Benjamin. We're off on our walk. And he scrapes his leg on a branch. Okay, good. I'm going to take this totally not invisible bottle of water right here that we had in our pack, and I'm going to pour some of it gently on the wound, get any dirt or any obvious things out of there that I can. Okay, good. I'm gonna let that dry off, even just in the air for a couple of minutes, that's okay. It's bleeding just a tiny bit. That's all right. Again, a little bit of bleeding, that helps get some of the possible infected blood out. This is gauze rolled up. That's the pack that I just opened there. It's kind of a thin material. You can even kind of see through it. But it's very absorbent. It will absorb a lot of water or blood. There's a lot of it in this. Pretty much every first aid kit that you can get is going to have some kind of pair of scissors in it, even if it's very small. All right, and I'll take this here, kind of fold up this bandage to give some padding here. I'm going to put it on the knee or the lower leg there where he had that scratch, and you put pressure on it. You know, the blood is now trying to come out. You put pressure on it, and it helps hold it in. It helps the body start to seal. And then you can use some kind of, let's say the only thing that you have is duct tape. All right, time to break out the duct tape. It's really gonna hurt when you take it off. But first aid kits are gonna have something in there that you can use to seal things up or to hold things together. Well, you know, this is a smaller cut. Let's use the other example first. Small cut, nothing much to it. We're gonna use this little Band-Aid. There we go. We're gonna peel off that bottom layer. This is the first time that this bandage has seen fresh air since it was manufactured, so we know it's clean. And we're gonna put that over the wound. All right, there we go, Benjamin. How you feeling? Yeah, okay. Able to keep walking? Let's go. Benjamin is a tough dude. Great. All right, now the other half of this situation is a little bit more serious. What if there's a wound or cut where bleeding does not stop right away? So put on disposable gloves or something else to cover your hands. Cover the wound with a sterile bandage or a clean cloth or cloth if a clean pad or cloth of a bandage isn't available. Have the injured person press hard enough to stop the blood flow, or if he can't, do it yourself. So that's the demonstration I was kind of giving on Benjamin here. Let's have this one on his arm. It's just a little bit easier to see on the camera. Putting pressure on it. If you've watched any movie or TV show where they show someone giving first aid, someone's got a wound, they're like, put pressure on it, put pressure on it. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. It helps keep the stuff in, keep the blood in, right? Helps to stop the blood flow. If the wound is on an arm or leg and bleeding doesn't stop quickly, raise the limb above the level of the heart. This will help the bleeding stop faster. Okay, Benjamin, wow, your arm is really gashed there. Here we've taken clean bandage. It's on the arm, but woo, that's still kind of bleeding here. We're gonna raise that above the level of your heart. Very good. It's just harder it takes more work for the heart to pump blood up than down. Just gravity. Okie doke. After the bleeding has stopped, apply a sterile bandage. Afterwards, wash your own hands well with hot water and soap. If it's a larger wound, have the injured person get immediate medical attention. Okay, good. So here we go. The first thing that happened was a gash. Oh, that's really bleeding. We're gonna put some stuff on it. Just quickly grab gauze out of the pack and just pop it on there. I didn't do anything to, I didn't put any ointment on there at first or anything like that. A lot of bleeding. We're just gonna stop the bleeding first. Great, all right, it's been a couple of minutes. That's kind of stopped. Great, excellent. Let's take a peek under the bandage. Still bleeding a little bit, but not a lot. Great, good. All right, so now we're gonna take off that bandage there. Only a tiny little bit of blood. I'm gonna take some of the antibiotic ointment. We're pretending that this little bit is like a pack of Neosporin or something. Antibiotic ointment, and we're going to put that on there. Put that on the wound. Yeah, it stings a little bit. Yeah, I know. I know it stings a little bit, but that's okay. That stinging is the feeling of this ointment getting in there and starting to kill this bacteria. Excellent. We're going to take more fresh, sterile bandage. I would have Benjamin hold this while I cut it so it doesn't fall and touch the ground. So you see it fall here, but I would have him hold on to that. Or if I had 4 hands, I would do it myself. All right. Take this, fold it up so it's kind of thick. It's got some more absorbent material there. We're gonna put it on there. And here is this amazing material that I first saw about 10 years ago when I was working in a horse barn, and they used it to help keep, to like wrap horses' legs and stuff like that. And the medical industry saw it and loved it. And you can now get it in most medical supplies. This is called Coban. And it's very stretchy, very, very stretchy. And it's kind of sticky to itself, not really to anything else. This is not sticking on my skin like duct tape. But this will grab onto itself and hold itself firmly, and it's not gonna really come off. It's great for, we have this bandage on his arm now, clean, sterile bandage. The bleeding is, mostly stopped, and this will help stop the rest of it. We've put the ointment on there, fresh dressing on it, and I can take this, wrap it around his arm, and this will hold the bandage on there for us. Whatever you seal it with, whether it's this or some tape or something like that, you want to make sure that it's not too tight on the person. Okay, I did 2 or 3 wraps around. I'm going to tear that off, and this stuff just sticks to itself. Oh, it's so great. Sticks to itself. And okay, how does that feel? Is that too tight? Can you still feel your, the blood going through your arm to your hand? Yeah? Okay, good. If their hands start to get tingly, if you're sealing it on their arm, their hands start to get tingly, you might have put the bandage on too tight, and you're cutting off blood flow to the rest of the hand there. And you're gonna wanna loosen that up a little bit so it's comfortable for them, but hard enough to keep the bandage, the pressure on the bandage. All right, Benjamin. Boy, we gotta watch out for those sticks as we're walking, huh? Yeah, okay, good. We're gonna have Mom take a look at this when we get home. That's a good idea. All right. We have a question here. Do the gloves have to be clean in order to do first aid? Taking a pair of gloves out of a first aid kit or something like that, they're going to be pretty clean. They're going to be cleaner than your own hands touching their skin, even if they're not perfectly sterile. That's okay. So now that we're done working with Benjamin and sealing that up, and we've taken any leftover materials that I used to fix them up, we've got our gauze here. I'm gonna put that in a plastic bag and kind of keep that separate so we can throw that away safely when we get home. I'm gonna show you how to take off gloves, because I know I'm touching all this stuff with these gloves. I wouldn't actually be doing that if there was blood on them. I would take these gloves off first before I really did anything else. So your hands are inside and they're clean, and on the outside of the gloves, there's maybe blood or dirt or something like that. And you want to take them off without getting them on the inside. If you have some, I've used shaving cream for this example before. I've seen people do peanut butter because peanut butter is really sticky and it gets everywhere and you can really tell if you got peanut butter on your hands. You're going to take, doesn't matter which hand you do first. You're going to grab the outside. There we go. The outside of the glove right at your wrist there. Notice I'm not touching my skin. I'm still touching just the glove. And I'm going to pull down like this, kind of roll my fingers together like that, and pull on through, and the glove comes off inside out. So now any dirt or blood or shaving cream or peanut butter is now inside the glove, trapped in there. I'm going to take that first glove and hold it in my still gloved hand. I'm going to put 2 fingers. There will be some loose space under the wrist of that glove. You can get it under on the inside so you're not touching the outside of the glove. And then pull it on back like that. All the dirty stuff is now inside these gloves. You will take it and any other of the trash from your first aid stuff here, put it in a separate bag and throw that out. I'm now going to wash my hands thoroughly. Okay, good. So that is what you're going to do with a small or big cut that you get. That's kind of the first level of first aid. Here's another thing that can happen is a nosebleed. A nosebleed is a small wound inside the nose. Because the bleeding comes from inside the nose, nosebleeds are handled differently than other wounds. Have the person sit up, lean forward, and pinch the soft part of his nostrils together for 5 or 10 minutes. You can also hold a cold, wet cloth to his nose and face while he is pinching. He should not blow his nose for several hours after the bleeding stops. Afterwards, wash your hands with hot water and soap. So, again, if I am going to be working with someone who has bleeding there, I'm going to put on gloves or, a plastic bag to put that barrier between my own hands and the blood and stuff. But a nosebleed very often can be handled by the person themselves. So you lean forward and you pinch kind of this part of the nose right here. I hope you can see that. Not down here, but up here. Now, I remember growing up, I was told, lean back. You want to lean back so that, actually, that's not the best way to do it. It's better to lean forward. If you lean back, that blood can drain down the back of your nose and into your stomach. And that's not great. You don't want a lot of blood in your stomach. A little bit, not a problem. A lot of it starts to kind of upset your stomach. You don't want to do that. Leaning forward, the blood is going to want to drain out there, but you're pinching it there and it helps the bleeding stop. Helps the bleeding come under control. And then you wash your hands. Hot water and soap, we are all a lot better at washing our hands now than we were 4 months ago. Okay, 4 minutes left here. I think we're gonna save the next part of this book here for our next first aid and emergencies class, which we're gonna do another one next week, I think next Monday, and we'll carry on here. I'm gonna use these last few minutes to answer as many questions in the first aid, in the Q&A section as I can. If I don't see your question, I apologize. I will stick around for a few minutes answering them by text at the end here. All right. Gerard says, first aid scissors shouldn't be near the cut, right? Yeah, if you can prevent from injuring your patient further, that's excellent. The scissors that you're gonna get in a first aid pack are a little bit, they're better designed than this thing for cutting stuff. They have rounded edges so that you're just cutting the cloth or the gauze and not the person. But you definitely wanna be careful. Okay, should you keep pressure limited or use all your muscle to put pressure on it? You are going to want to put as much pressure as is necessary. Too much, and it could hurt the person. If you have your friend just kind of like leaning on your arm really hard, you're like, ow, stop. So if it's a ton of bleeding and there's really a lot of blood coming out, I'm going to put that full pressure on there as much as I can in order to keep that bleeding stop. Even if they say, like, you're really hurting my leg because you're pressing down on it. Well, I'm trying to save your life. Deal with it. But if it's just, you know, a bit coming out, you don't need to put your whole body weight on it. It's just how much pressure is necessary to help the bleeding stop. Shanna says, you look like a nurse, James. Thanks, Shanna. My mom is a nurse, so that's definitely a compliment. All right. Oh, someone's asking, how do we spell gauze? G-A-U-S-E. Yeah. G-A-U-S-E is how you spell gauze. Okay, good. I have to just find the questions here. All right, Natalie asks, can you use toilet paper for wrapping an arm? I'm really glad you asked that. I would not use toilet paper. I would try to find some other cloth, some other bandage. Toilet paper is designed so that when it gets wet, it disintegrates. It falls apart, and you don't want that with a wound. You're gonna want to be able to pull that bandage away and to have all of it come away. Let's say a part of that toilet paper gets stuck on the wound, gets inside, and the blood starts to seal over it. That could cause an infection, and you don't want that. Just like you wouldn't want any other bit of cloth or dirt or stone, or like little pebbles or rocks in your skin. You don't want a piece of that toilet paper. Now, have I used toilet paper to help with stuff bleeding? Sure, yeah, definitely, absolutely. I had this, you know, this poke on my arm, and I scratched it and it started bleeding. I was like, oh, I think it was like a mosquito bite or something. I didn't realize I had scratched it open. And I grabbed some toilet paper and I just kind of dabbed the bleeding with the toilet paper. But I didn't leave it on there, and I especially wouldn't use it for a bigger wound because it would kind of come apart there, and we have that problem. Can you use a shirt? We've probably all seen a movie where someone comes up and they like rip the sleeve off of their shirt. They're like, here, we can put them there. Yeah, yeah. If it's the person's really bleeding a lot and, you know, you got to stop the bleeding. That is more dangerous than the infection that would come afterwards, right? If they live long enough for them to get an infection, great. You can handle that later. You can get them to the doctor. The doctor will get the right medicine for them. I am going to sign off here. We're going to stop the feed for now. We're going to pick this up again next week. Do join me later this week. There's more classes that I'm doing on space science and creative writing. Coming up at 11, we have music with Adam and Remy. And at 1:15 today, we have computer science basics with Quinn. I hope you all tune in for those. I'll stick around for a few minutes answering more questions in the Q&A section by text. See you guys next time.